And Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg is testifying today in a landmark social media trial. The family of a 19-year-old is suing his company Meta and YouTube, claiming the platforms are designed to be addictive and damage young users' mental health. Meta says it strongly disagrees with the allegations and is, quote, confident the evidence will show our longstanding commitment to supporting young people. In 2021, whistleblower Frances Haugen testified before Congress, saying Facebook executives disregarded the platform's harmful effects.
But I'm here today because I believe Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people.
After her testimony, Facebook issued a statement saying Haugen worked for the company, quote, for less than 2 years, had no direct reports, never attended a decision point meeting with C-level executives, and testified more than 6 times to not working on the subject matter in question. And now this new trial is echoing Haugen's claims. And Frances Haugen is here with more on her experience. Hi, Frances. Thank you for coming on. That testimony was nearly 5 years ago. So what was your reaction when you read about this lawsuit now going to trial?
I think most people don't understand how much of a landmark moment this is. In the United States, we sometimes struggle to pass laws about really critical issues. Think tobacco, think opiates. We spent years kind of wrestling with it. Instead, a class action lawsuit was necessary to bring some justice to victims and to protect others. This is the same thing. This is the moment we've been waiting for.
This lawsuit echoes a lot of what was in your testimony, including your comparison from tech companies to the tobacco industry, saying they borrowed techniques aimed at maximizing youth engagement. What makes you say that? What did you see or hear when you were there?
Well, one of the things that's come out since my whistleblowing is they've had millions of pages disclosed as part of discovery. And what's shocking is there's quotes in those documents of Facebook's own employees saying to each other, we are the tobacco companies. I made that allegation back 5 years ago because I saw documents where they knew ways to make these products safer for kids. You know, maybe we shouldn't send notifications late at night because we know sleep deprivation is real. And they chose not to do it because when you get a notification late at night, you use the product more.
One big challenge for the plaintiffs in this case is going to be convincing the jury that Instagram was a substantial factor in this teen's mental health struggles. Meta's lawyers say evidence shows she faced many significant, difficult challenges well before she ever used social media. You have talked a lot about the harmful impact of social media on kids. What makes you so sure it's the social media causing the harm and not, for example, that teens with mental health issues are prone to spend more time on social media?
A really big part of this case relies on things like Facebook saying, we keep under 13-year-olds off our platforms, when they knew that there were lots of under 13-year-olds on their platforms. Even if the plaintiff was facing struggles elsewhere in her life, it's almost certain that being able to access things like Instagram at a very young age, we're talking 7, 8, 9. Remember, 30% of 7 to 9-year-olds are on social media. That had to have contributed significantly to where she ended up.
Now, Meta also says it's made meaningful changes like introducing teen accounts with built-in protections and providing parents with tools to manage their teens' experiences. The plaintiffs are arguing, referencing your testimony actually, that if research and feedback showed teens were struggling years ago, why weren't these controls introduced sooner? But I'm curious, how significant do you think those changes are, and do they fix the problems you testified about?
You know, the Facebook has this very odd tendency of when they launch child safety features. So the first really big wave came out just a day or two before the UK's age-appropriate design code went live. And then a lot of the features they're bragging about now came forward right before Australia announced we're going to work on passing a law to prohibit under 16-year-olds on social media. The changes they've finally rolled out are meaningful. But there are also things that could have been rolled out 10 years sooner. Things like, should kids be defaulted into the most public accounts by default? Or should we give them a little bit more privacy settings when they first join the platform? That's the question at hand.
Instagram CEO also testified last week that it's important to differentiate clinical addiction and problematic use. He compared Instagram's algorithm to binging a Netflix show, saying that's not the same thing as clinical addiction. What's your response to that?
One of the really key differences between, say, Netflix's corpus, that's the collection of movies they have, and what's available on Instagram, is Instagram has billions of possible things they can show you, while Netflix maybe at any given time has thousands. Yes, you might sit there and watch one TV show for 6 hours. But on Instagram, it can find the topics that you're most vulnerable to and then show you days and days and days and days of that content. When Molly Russell died in the UK, this is the first time a coroner said Instagram killed this child. By the time she died, half of her feed was pro self-harm content. That's the difference between watching a single show on Netflix and having weeks or months of these kinds of experiences.
So what are you expecting to hear from Mark Zuckerberg today?
Well, if the past is any indication of the future, we've seen that he is very good at making apologies that sound like an apology, but don't take any responsibility. So I'm expecting him today to try to point at the things they have done and not acknowledge all the opportunities they had. You know, a lot of the testimony and evidence brought forward shows all the individual points where they ran experiments, they knew how to make the product better, and they chose not to because it cost little bits of engagement.
You mentioned Australia before. They've banned social media for people under 16. Other countries are considering similar bans. Is that the answer, or do you think there are other less drastic solutions?
You know, I always repeat, I'm not a prohibitionist when it comes to social media. But the question is, in a world where we can't put in place, or we seem to not be able to, remember, we can pass laws. In a world where we're not willing to stand up to these companies and put in place some guardrails, put in place transparency requirements, other things like that, we're going to expect more and more countries to do what Australia did, which is they said, you won't listen to us, you won't intervene, our kids are dying, our kids are getting sick because of your negligence. Until you show you respect us, we're going to have to prohibit social media for under 16s.
All right, Frances Haugen, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Happy to be here.